Actually, one thing I was curious about checking out. So, Lost Soul Aside came out, and it's apparently not very good. It's got a lot of performance issues, and yeah, the game's been remade from the ground up, and we have a Gamers Joint video here, sort of looking at those changes, looking at that development, and the thing that we kind of got. I wanted to play this game when it came out. I do not want to play the game now that it is out. Performance issues, okay, so all modern games. Well, also, they remade the game, and it just looks worse than it did 9 years ago. Which also doesn't help.
9 years after its initial reveal in 2016, Lost Soul Aside releases in 2025. Going back to that original trailer is really interesting now that we have the final version. There are a ton of key differences, and clearly a lot of change.
Yeah, a lot of that trailer is like vertical slice. The problem is there are fights you can directly compare between the original version and now, which makes the comparisons even worse. Like, there are boss fights that were in the original trailer that are in the game now, and, yeah. New version of the game that looks and runs slightly worse.
Changes were made to the game. Much like Final Fantasy Versus 13, the original vision for what Lost Soul Aside was supposed to be was never actually realized. Unfortunately, this is the result of a project restart back in 2020, along with lack of experience and over-aiming with ambitious goals for the budget that was allocated for the game. And although director Yang Bing did join forces with Sony back in 2017 to form Ulti-Zero Games, a proper
modern games equals mandatory poor performance. Hey! Silk Song runs well. Also, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 runs well. We have two games. We have two games. Two games that run well.
Studio that would help develop Lost Soul Aside. By 2019,
Kingdom Come.
the team size was only around about 20 people, relatively quite small. The 2016 iteration of the game, though, is really interesting because basically all of the contents are no longer present within this final version. Keeping in mind, though, that at this stage, the game had only been in development for 2 years and was being developed only
like, look how cool
by
this
Yang
is.
Bing. One person. Personally, though, I think that's what made Lost Soul Aside so damn impressive when it first hit the internet, and also why this project went so viral, eventually leading to Sony taking notice. For 2 years of work, though, it looked like Yang Bing had made some great progress with this game, although the trailer does feature a lot of locations that are honestly quite empty and barren. It was clear that the game was still very much in the early stages of development. The sheer amount of locations, environments, and set pieces that appear throughout the 5-minute runtime of this trailer is a really impressive feat, but furthermore,
indie studios have less programmers who are usually also more talented, so it's easy to coordinate what to optimize. I don't necessarily think indie programmers are more talented. I think not having the overhead of management telling you what to do leads to a game where you can actually get more done, right? Like, if you're not in meetings 3 hours every day, you're going to have more time to do things. If you want to make changes and you don't have to go through 3 layers of management, right, like, there's a lot of overhead that comes with a big organization. Also, if you're working at a AAA company, you don't really get to make these really sweeping changes, right? If management wants to do something a certain way, even if you say this is shit, if management says this is how we're doing it, you gotta make shit, right?
to know that all of these environments were scrapped for the game that we have today. None of these environments appear within the final build. Wide open grassy plains, mountainous locations with floating islands off in the distance, castle-like ruins, cavernous waterways, foggy forests, a desert region, a jungle rainforest, modern city streets, and even an earthreal looking forest with
just delete everything. That was cool.
While some of the locations in the final build are clear evolutions of what's seen here in this trailer, basically all of them were scrapped in 2020. There's also a few points throughout this trailer that clearly show that Lost Soul Aside at point was going for an open world setup. As we know, the level design of the final game is very much linear, and personally so I think it should be if it is trying to be more of an action-orientated hack-and-slash title. But here we can clearly see Kaiser using a scan mechanic to scan the environment to uncover points of interest. Arena's wing transformation was also going to be a proper controllable flight mechanic as well. In the final game, these are only ever used in cutscenes, but here in this build, you can actually use them to traverse the environment to even...
I do wonder how much of this game was bad management from the creator and how much of it was publisher oversight. I am very curious. I would love to hear a full development breakdown of how this game went.
Fly up onto the floating islands. In this screenshot, you can even see a point of interest located off in the distance. While the core gameplay of Lost Soul Aside has always remained to be the same, being a hack-and-slash action RPG, Kaiser's moveset and combos here in this version are quite a bit different compared to the final build. In this footage, Kaiser is only using the sword, as I'm assuming Yangbing at this stage in development hadn't created weapon switching or multiple other weapons. I also want to say that it almost comes across as the gameplay that is on offer here within this very early build of Lost Soul Aside seems like it is a lot more punchy and provides a bit more impact to the feedback of actually attacking things.
Things feel weightier.
What we have right now with the final version.
That looks so fucking cool.
This is something that the Lost Soul Aside devs are currently working on to improve. They've already applied a patch that actually helps to make the combat system feel a little bit better. One thing though that is very apparent is the attack VFX are insanely over the top. They are everywhere and they are super distracting. This is something that really toned back on. You'll notice on the left of the screen there is a combo counter which can commonly be found in character action hack and slash games. The last time this was seen was in the 2017 build of the game. However, there was going to be
look at how cool it looked in 2017. Look, if this is
found in character action hack and slash games. The last
if this is the game we got,
time this was seen was in the 2017
like, that's so fucking cool.
However, there was going to be a Devil May Cry style meter system that can be seen within the 2023 China Joy demo. The better you perform in combat without taking a hit, the higher your style meter increases. And this system was actually attached to the Burst Pursuit ability. So I'm assuming that the higher your style meter was, the stronger Burst Pursuit would be by pressing R2. It's really strange that they decided to remove this, considering that
Silksong had plenty of time to get good performance polishing. Silksong really threw the house by the window was with the price. Or in all honesty, I was expecting to be at least $40 or higher. Do you know what? I love the fact that you see these indie devs outing, basically just outing themselves. You have this situation where Silksong came along and made Team Cherry came along, made an amazing fucking game, and you have some of these devs who are like, this means that we have to change the price of our game. They released it without telling us. Like, if you're not confident in your game, hey, it sucks to suck. If you can't compete in the market, make a better game. Look, if you're that worried about Silksong, that sounds like a skill issue. Frankly, right? Like, I know that's maybe not a nice thing to hear, but you are making a game for like an audience. You are making a product, and if your product can't compete in the market, you're not going to sell. No matter what the price is, no one's going to buy it.
The 2023 build is actually quite recent, and it looks like this is going to be a core part of the combat system. We can also see a very different looking heads-up display. We've got 3 gauges here, with the bottom one being Kaiser's HP bar. I'm not too sure what this middle gauge is, but the top one here can be seen depleting when Kaiser is using the wings. There's this diamond and
maybe that's an
triangle
experience
icon
meter.
with EX written over the top, which may have been used to activate a sort of burst or special mode ability. And we can see that level 1 is
there is a patch for Silksong that's just come out that is nerfing some of the bosses, so you know. And look, if people want to mod the game to be easier, it's a single player game. I think you're ruining the game by doing so, but I don't care. If you want to ruin the game, you're allowed to ruin the game. It's a single player game.
Maybe insinuating that there would have been a proper leveling system for this iteration of the game, rather than the skill point system we have now. Looking at how the minimap has north and south written on it probably goes back to the fact that this game was originally going to be an open world title. Quite often throughout this footage, the minimap does show very large, wide open spaces of playable area. A slightly improved version of the same HUD can then be seen again in the following year in 2017 within the PlayStation experience footage. Something that's very apparent within the 2016 and 2017 build is violence and gore. The Voidrax here would actually bleed, and there were some attacks that you could pull off that would both dismember and decapitate. If you were to take damage, there'd also be this blood splat effect that would splat onto the screen. Also, the Voidrax that we're seeing here do look a little bit different compared to the ones we've got in the final version. Something that has remained though since the very beginning is the Victor fight and just the character of Victor, although the fight itself is happening in a totally different location here, and that the actual mechanics and moveset of the fight itself is also quite a bit different too. It seems that Yang Bing has always had this character in mind as a sort of semi-what antagonist role temporarily since Lost Solicide's inception. It also looks like Yang Bing was planning on incorporating the in-gameplay boss fight cinematics, much like what we see in Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth. I also noticed within this gameplay too that there is a regular looking block. None of that really bizarre block system that we have in the final game with the arena ring that goes around Kaiser. Kaiser just simply raises his sword up to block, which I would have much preferred.
That's way better.
A little bit rough here, as does a lot of the gameplay, as it's so early on. This is very much a prototype of the game, but still, what I would do to just have a regular block. This character right here could very well be the very first
I can't see the character.
version of
rendered
Arabon.
weirdly.
Of course, he received a complete redesign. There is not one character in the game that even resembles.
How did you
this dude
render
right
it badly
here.
twice?
English voice actor, and potentially even his entire.
Oh god, the English voice acting in this game is something.
The vibe totally changed in the final build compared to what we see here within the 2016 version.
Now that Arabon and his Voidrax forces are gone, there's no reason for me to stay.
The dream again. Well, it's time to
That's what the fuck?
So those are the bulk of differences that were at least made public of the original vision of this game. As I mentioned, a great deal of this was scrapped in 2020.
Let me show you the let me show you the scene that everyone's memeing on in this game. Here we go. Enjoy.
If you don't pay on time, you need to be taught a lesson.
Also notice the stuttering in the cutscene.
You peasants!
You alright?
Kaiser.
Stand back. I've got this.
Stop. The stutter, man. Oh my god.
Kaiser!
How do you have stutters in a cutscene?
Project was restarted, entirely taking out the open world aspect of this game.
Sometimes it feels like American voice acting in Asian material, like anime and video games, is mandatory and canonically awful. I've watched videos about this before. A lot of it comes down to the fact that a lot of voice directors in America are looking for cinema-style voice acting. They aren't looking for characters, they're looking for realism. Now, they missed the mark on realism by doing so, but they're not looking for what would fit in an anime-ish role.
Well, it isn't explained within the Bilibili information that's been posted online covering Lost Soul Aside's development history, the reason why Yangbing made this drastic...
And if you want a prime example of how to do it well, look at Expedition 33. Like, you can complain about Expedition 33 being UE5 and having some UE5 performance issues and UE5 weird rendering issues. No one talks shit about the voice acting in the game, though.
Decision was likely because of, one, inexperience for his team at the time, considering a lot of them were either mobile game developers or people who were taking on apprenticeships, meaning that they...
Kiryu was better in the older games, and then they did the Yongye Kiryu, and it was very bad. Ren has... I think Ren played Like a Dragon in English. I don't play any Japanese games in English. I'm just not going to do that. Why would I do that?
were learning
Except
how
Kingdom
to
Hearts.
develop whilst working on the game itself.
Just
but
because
also,
of
Sony
I played as a kid
PlayStation's
in
funding.
English.
The Bilibili information reports that the development budget
Also, Kingdom Hearts has good English voice acting because it's a Disney game, and Disney's always had good Disney-ish voice acting.
of Lost Soul Aside was about 20% of Black Myth Wukong's budget and about half of Stellar Blade's. It's reported that Black Myth Wukong's
We love
budget
Stellar
was
Blade.
somewhere around 42 million US, and Stellar Blade's was around
Stellar
about
Blade is a
30
god-tier
million
game.
US. So from that, we can assume that Lost Soul Aside's likely came in around the 15 to 20 million mark. So there's a pretty good chance that in 2020, Yang Bing thought to himself, the scope that the team is trying to aim for in regards to that original vision and the fact that there is a clear lack of experience is just simply not going to be possible with the budget that's currently allocated. This is why Lost Soul Aside definitely comes across as a game that's not quite AAA, but also isn't AA. It is this really weird mix in between. It's incredibly important to know though that Sony are the ones that set the price on this title, as they are the publishers. And the fact that this game did release in most regions around the world with a AAA price tag of $60 US is likely because Sony wants
Let's go to SteamDB and see how many people played the game. If this game was 40 US dollars, I think people would be less bothered by it. They wouldn't be happy, but I think they would be less bothered. On Steam, it peaked at 3,000. So I would assume the game's maybe sold... I don't know, maybe sold 15,000 at most? Maybe? And this is a game that probably cost, like, 15 million to make, so... yeah. They didn't make their money back.
to be able to try and recoup a portion of the money that was lent to Yang Bing and Ulti-Zero Games. However, it wasn't just a complete restart back in 2020, but Yang Bing and Ulti-Zero faced quite a few road bumps from 2020 through until release now in 2025. This would include some big changes and revisions.
Can we go back, can we stop developing subsurface scattering and other stuff no one wants and go back to $20 per game? Games back on the PS2 were still like $60. However, we also had AAA games that were of a lower tier. So like not every $60 wasn't the standard price. You had like you have with indie games, you actually had a range of pricing with AAA games as well. But the issue is, yeah, a lot of devs focus on shit that no one cares about. They focus on the fancy effects before they focus on the game itself.
To Lost Solicide's story script in early 2024. This came at the request of Sony in order to keep fans engaged, as originally the game was going to have 10 story chapters, with the final version here now only having 5. Although from Sony's point of view, they thought that with this many chapters, there might be a loss of engagement and attention from the player. Honestly speaking, now knowing this could be one of the major reasons why I think that the story is one of the weakest aspects of this game. Because clearly...
Wait, so Sony cut the story in half, and they're like, yeah, just make it work. I don't know how, just do it.
Had a much bigger story to tell if it was going to span over 10 chapters. Who knows though, it may have been a situation where the story was dragging and it was better told within 5. Back in 2021 through until early 2023, most of China was still in lockdown. Because everyone was forced to work from home, this meant that overall progress on the game had slowed down significantly.
Right, so okay, it was also a COVID game. That makes a lot of sense as well.
Significantly, keeping in mind that around this point there were only 30 people working at Ulti-Zero Games. Unfortunately though, during this time, a lot of the team members ended up leaving Ulti-Zero to move on to bigger studios. It was even a situation that occurred last year where the studio's planner was leaking internal information about the project, along with giving false information, along with getting involved in online drama within Chinese forums. It's reported that Yang Bing struggled to get this person fired, and it was only after the public had caught wind of this issue that Sony allowed him to actually make the call to remove her from the studio. Suffice to say, Yang Bing has gone through some insane trials and tribulations.
Was this person fucking a manager?
Arrive here in 2025 with the completed
What the fuck
product.
can you fire her?
Although it isn't the original vision that he had in mind back in 2014 when he first started working by himself on Lost Soul Aside, I think the game still ended up being quite a fun time. There are some very clear issues, as I explained within my review, but the game's only been out for just over a week at this stage, and this relatively small team has already pumped out a great optimization and enhancement patch, and they'll continue to do so. Even if this game didn't manage to quite hit the mark and meet the expectations that so many had for it, Yang Bing's journey of getting to where he is now is one of pure inspiration. But at least from what we know, it absolutely did not come easy. To be really honest, when you look at the final product of Lost Soul Aside, knowing the size of this development team, then comparing it to a game like Devil May Cry 5 from Capcom that had 250 people working on that, or something like Final Fantasy 15 that...
How many people worked on the game? Let's find the number. 40 employees. Okay. How many people does Sandfall have? Approximately 33. They had contractors, but I don't want to hear this. No, it's like, oh, Devil May Cry 5 had this many people. Final Fantasy 15 had this many people. Expedition 33 had less. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear that, oh, they couldn't make an amazing game with 40 people. I don't care. I don't care. If Expedition 33 can do it, so can you.
And at the time had 1,500 people working on that. It is
Yeah,
actually
15's not a good
really
game.
impressive to see what Ulti-Zero ended up coming out with, and also knowing the budget they had to work with. However guys, that is a look back on the original vision of Lost Soul Aside and a bit on its development history. Hopefully this has been able to provide a little bit more insight towards the journey that this game has gone through. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Yeah, a journey is one way to put it. A journey is certainly a phrase that you could use. No, I want my ADHD games like a billion features I didn't ask for. Yes! I need my flashing lights. How can I play a video game if there's not lights flashing every 3 seconds? That's impossible. I need to be able to not see anything happening on the screen. No, like, in all seriousness, though, I am sad this game didn't turn out to be what the dev wanted it to be, and this game didn't really do that well. Like, it honestly did look like a super cool game, and what we got was a game. We got a game, which, you know what, to be fair, we got a game. It didn't get cancelled, but maybe, yeah, maybe it didn't end up being... It didn't end up being a great game at the end of it. Yeah. It is what it is, though. It is what it is, right? Like, even if the game wasn't amazing, there are other games to play, right? There are plenty of games to play. Like, right now, as I was saying earlier in the stream, I've been playing through Trails in the Sky. Trails in the Sky is amazing. I love this game so much. Played it for 8 hours. That was 8 hours in one sitting. Yeah. There's plenty of games to play, so if one game's bad, it doesn't matter that much. It's annoying, but it's not the end of the world if one game sucks.